know how you're doing. Hey there. Okay, so hi Ritika, how are you doing? If you could tell me how you're doing quickly. And also let me know which grade you're studying in so that I understand like what age background you come from. You're doing great. All right, good to know. Ritika, could you tell me which grade you're in or which standard you're studying in? You're in 12th right now. All right. So, Ritika, I'm guessing since you've joined this webinar that, you want to pursue abroad studies. Yes or no? Just quickly type in. Meanwhile, hi, Tuba. I see Tuba Ashraf has joined. Hey, Tuba, what are you doing? You can have a conversation with us in the chat box. Yeah. Tuba, how are you doing? And very quickly, Tuba, could you tell me which grade you're studying in? Also, Ritika said yes to pursuing abroad education. So, Ritika, by this, I'm also guessing that you've given your XCTs or ACT, whichever entrance exam are you planning on giving? If yes, then let me know in the chat box which of the exams you're planning on giving, which are the entrances. Nope, not yet. Okay. And Tuba, you're also in 12. All right. So, Ritika, Tuba, both of you all are, on the cusp of actually entering your career. So guys, since we're talking about abroad education and since today's webinar is also in relation to how to further pursue that, let us know in the chat box which college you might be, looking forward to. Or if I'm supposed to ask, what is your dream college? What would be the answer to that? I'll give you all a second to type in. Meanwhile, Joanne has joined. Joanne Manoj. Hey there, Joanne. What's up? Okay, guys, let me repeat my question. Which university do you all planning on joining? Okay, so Tuba has mentioned King Abdullah Aziz University, Abdul Aziz University. All right. Tuba, could you let me know where this is situated? I think this is situated in Saudi, the Gulf. If you're talking about King Abdul Aziz University, it's in Saudi Arabia. Correct me if I'm wrong, Tuba. And Ritika, I haven't decided the country I'll be studying at. All right, Ritika, I'm currently looking at scholarship opportunities. Okay, so Ritika, very quickly, I think Arienne can take this up as well. Scholarship opportunities, there are numerous types of scholarships that are there. One scholarship is based on merit, the other is based on your, financial status as well. So there are different type of scholarship opportunities that you can apply to. Just a bit of advice on that, Ritika. And Tuba has said Saudi Arabia, Jeddah. Yes, Tuba. I think King Abdulaziz universities is one of the top universities in Gulf, namely in Saudi Arabia. Okay. Also, Joanne, I see you've joined, but I've not had a text from you. So, hey, Joanne, how are you doing? If you could just type it in the chat box, hi or hey, so that I know you're there. Okay. And Ritika, circling back to you and circling back to Tuba. Tuba, any particular field that you want to pursue at King Abdulaziz University? And also, Ritika, since you've not decided which country you'll be looking at, there are a lot of opportunities, right? Like there are U.S. universities, Canadian universities you can look forward to, UK universities as well. So based on that, I think if I'm not wrong, Arienne, I think UK requires IELTS as a compulsory exam.
Yes, that's true. So both the UK and Canada require an English proficiency exam, specifically the IELTS exam. So the IELTS tests on basic English proficiency, speaking, reading, and writing. In order to even get the visa to study in the country, you'll need at least a 6.5. So the IELTS is out of 9, and then there's like 0.5 scores as well. So you could get like 6.5, 6, etc. A good score would be 7.5 or higher, but a 6.5 is the minimum of what you would need in order to get your visa.
All right, thank you so much for that. Also, Arienne, Tuba, and Ritika both have mentioned, Tuba has mentioned software engineering and Ritika is mentioning computer science and cybersecurity. Any further colleges that you could list down for Ritika over here, just in terms of advice on what she can apply to?
Sure, in the US or where exactly? Canada?
She's not sure which country she's not selected. She just knows that she wants to pursue computer science.
Computer science, yeah, I can mention a few. So I've helped students, so just for context, I've helped students get into universities all across the world, specifically US, Canada, and UK, and other European universities as well. So to answer your question, I'll focus on the US, and I can also talk a little bit about some Canadian schools. In the US, obviously MIT seems to be like, oh, can you give me a minute? I want to note it down. Sure. Okay. So I'll just answer it in a minute. Just let me know when you're ready. Yeah.
Yeah. Also, Tuba, it's great that you've, finally narrowed it down to software engineering. I think it's in much scope, specifically that today's world is moving to the digital age, and software engineering is, Tuba, if you have, if you are pursuing King Abdulaziz University, any particular reasons for it, or you could be pursuing any other universities from the Gulf as well. There are some Bahraini universities which are, really known for software engineering as well. Why not pursue it outside? And Ritika, let us know when you're ready, so Arienne would be able to answer. Yeah,
okay.
Is ready. Yeah.
All right. So I think so obviously like the #1 school that most students want to go to for computer science is sorry. Can you see my video?
No.
Okay, sorry, I don't know what happened, but yeah. So the #1 school that most computer science want to go to is MIT, but MIT is like a reach school. That's kind of like the Stanford of computer science. Stanford University is also really good for computer science, but other schools that I would say are more not as reach schools, so more target schools for computer science, and they're still within the top 20, top 40 of computer science are Purdue University. So Purdue University is one. University of Massachusetts Amherst is also good. So they're very well known for artificial intelligence. University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign. So some of you probably heard of UIUC. So the full name is University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign. They're very good for computer science. Another one that I would recommend is Carnegie Mellon University. So Carnegie Mellon University is actually the #1 school in the United States for artificial intelligence. I'm going to put these in the chat. So I put 1, 2, 3, these 4 schools in the chat for you, Vitika. Some other schools. So if you want to consider the UCs, those are also really good options. So the UC schools, they're all in California. They're all public schools. So this includes like UC Berkeley, UCLA, UC San Diego, UC Irvine, etc. I would say that the ones I just mentioned, those UCs are the top UCs, but yeah, I would look into the UC schools. Another popular school for computer science is Worcester Polytechnic Institute. So let me also put that in the chat as well for you. WPI Worcester. Just a minute, I'm going to copy and paste it. Here we go. So that's another great computer science school. So I would say look into those 5 that I just recommended, and also some of the UC schools as well.
Thank you so much for that, Arienne. Meanwhile, guys, we'll be starting our webinar in like a minute or so. If there are any questions regarding college applications, admissions, if you need some help getting there, you can type in your questions in the chat box and we'll be able to take it up for you all. Meanwhile, Chirag has joined. Hey there, Chirag. How are you doing? Okay, so guys, I think it's time that we start our webinar, but if there are any questions at all that pop up in your head, you can keep posting it in the chat box and we'll be able to take it up after the webinar ends. Meanwhile, I think, Arienne, we can move to the...
Sure, so I'll share my screen. Just a minute, share screen. Oh, it's not letting me, are you the host?
I made you the co-host, just try again once.
Okay. Oh, no. Okay,
yeah.
Got it. Just a minute.
Hey Aditya, hey Chirag, how are you guys doing? Okay, perfect. I think we can move to the introduction slide.
Yeah. Okay, can you guys see my screen?
Yes, it's visible.
Perfect. Great. So just so you guys know, my name is Arienne. I graduated from Harvard University for my master's and Georgetown for undergrad. and I'll share more about myself in a bit. As mentioned, I've helped students get into schools across the world, specifically US, Canada, as well as UK and some other European schools. If you guys have any questions throughout the webinar, please feel free to put them in the chat. I do check the chat quite often. And during the webinar, I'll already start to answer some of your questions. And we'll also have a Q&A section at the very end. So the purpose of today is to learn about the personal statement. Now, the personal statement in the US and the UK are very different from one another, and we'll look at both of them in this session. Yeah, go ahead.
I think I'll pick it up. So welcome everyone to today's session. And today we have Arienne, as she mentioned her name, with us. She's an admission consultant and a video producer for LEAP. And she's obtained her master's degree in international education policy from the Harvard Graduate School of Education, and also took courses at the Harvard Law School, Harvard Business School, John F. Kennedy School of Government, and Harvard Divinity School. While at Harvard, she served as the project lead for developing an open e-learning course on diversity, equity, and inclusion for the UNESCO Chair in Open Technologies for Open Education, Educational Resources, and Open Learning. Arienne is very committed to advancing education reform, especially in the ASEAN region. She has been the first woman to serve as Education U.S.A. ambassador for the U.S. Embassy in Manila. Since graduating with honors from Georgetown University in 2014, Arienne has publicly spoken about cultural diplomacy, diversity, and inclusion, and international higher education at various venues, such as Harvard, Georgetown, Officer of the Higher Education Commission of Thailand, Ulbricht Thailand, and the British Council. If there's anyone who can guide you to your dream school, it's her. With that, I welcome you, Arienne, and hope you all have a lovely evening with us.
Thank you so much for that warm welcome. It's been such a pleasure to really help guide students throughout the whole application process, not just with applications actually, but also throughout high school and developing their profile in order to make sure that they can get into top schools. So these are some of my success stories. I've helped students get into these schools. So can anyone guess which 3 of these schools are Ivy League universities? So 3 of these schools pictured here are Ivy League universities. Which ones? Feel free to put them in the chat. Yale, Aditya got one. Okay, so Yale University, I've helped one of my students get in there. Ritika, yes, Cornell. Which one is the 3rd Ivy? Wharton. Okay, so yeah. So Wharton is the #1 business school, and it's located at the University of Pennsylvania. So UPenn is an Ivy League school. I've helped a student get in for finance. Cornell, also an Ivy League school. I've helped a student get in there for entrepreneurship as well as computer science. And then Yale, I've helped a student get in there for theater and dramatic arts. And then Northwestern is also a really good school. It's one of the top schools in the US. Rice University, one of my students in the CBSE system, she got in early to Rice for computer science. We have UC Berkeley. So UC Berkeley is the #1 public school in the world. NYU, New York University, very good for the arts, but also they have a really good engineering program. Emory University is good for law. UCLA is one of the top UC schools, and then Carnegie Mellon University is the #1 artificial intelligence school in the US. Can anyone guess which one of these schools has the most international students? It's a trick question. So let's see if you guys guess it right. Which one of these schools? Oh, okay, Ritika got it right. So usually students don't get this question right, but it's NYU. So NYU, out of all schools in the US and possibly the world, I'll have to look into that. But out of all schools in the US, they do have the most international students. So a little background about me. I got into Harvard, UPenn, and Columbia with scholarships. Ultimately, I chose to go to Harvard, and I chose Harvard for a number of reasons, but here in this screenshot is the message, the email that I received once I had committed to Harvard. So if I can do it, you can absolutely do it too. And a little bit about me. So I'm very bad at standardized tests. I did not do well on the SAT. I also did not do well on the GRE. The GRE is basically the graduate school version of the SAT. And yet I still got into these amazing schools with scholarships. So it is possible to get into top schools without getting like a top SAT score. You just have to have a perfect application. Otherwise, you have to have really good you have to have really good essays, which we'll talk about today. You also have to have good letters of recommendation and have good grades in school. Okay, so let's go on. What is a personal statement? So in the chat, what do you guys know about the personal statement? You could either talk about the US or the UK personal statement. Anything? Okay, so I'll go ahead and I'll just introduce what it is. So the personal statement, it's the statement of purpose for studying that course, telling about yourself and your achievements. Okay, so Syed, I don't know if I'm pronouncing your name correctly, and also Chirag. So both of you kind of defined it as like the UK personal statement. So for the first part of this session, I'm going to talk mostly about the US personal statement. And then for the second part, I'll talk about the UK personal statement. And then I'll also have a little slide about Canada, if any of you want to apply to Canada. So Canada does not have a personal statement, but they do have some essays. Some of the programs do require essays. So let's talk about Canada first, since it's the quickest. University of British Columbia is one of the top schools in Canada. Now, as I just said, Canada does not have a personal statement. However, they do have personal statement-like prompts. So, for example, at UBC, they ask, tell us about who you are. How would your family, friends, or members of your community describe you? If possible, please include something about yourself that you're most proud of and why. The second question is, what is important to you and why? So for my first, I'll tell you a sample. So one of my students got into all of his schools in Canada. He spoke, for the first prompt, he spoke about how he was able to overcome bullying. So he experienced a lot of bullying due to being Asian. He talked about that experience and how he was able to overcome that, and how he did that through highlighting his strengths. So through pursuing his passion for football or soccer, and how people, like, he was able to make friends from that, and how, so how he was able to overcome bullying was basically the main point of that essay. The second point, we made academic. So for the second essay, for what is important to you and why, we spoke about what, I guess, career or what discipline he wants to focus on in college, and the things that he's done specifically for that track. So for example, he wants to be a doctor, and then he spoke about an internship that he did, some work experience that he did during high school. Okay, so these are for the US. So how many of you have heard about the Common App or the Common Application? Yes? No? Yes, okay. So just for those, for everyone actually, the Common App is the website or the portal that you will use to apply to most of the universities in the United States. Now, not every university uses the Common App. So for example, MIT does not use the Common App. They have their own application system. The UCs also do not use the Common App. They have their own UC application system. Also, Georgetown University, where I went to undergrad, they also don't use the Common App. They have their own application system. However, most universities like Stanford, Carnegie Mellon, Purdue University, Princeton, Harvard, etc., those schools do use the Common Application, or Common App for short. So the first prompt seems to be the most popular prompt that students choose. When I say prompt, by the way, I mean like question. So you don't have to answer all of these questions. There's 7 questions in total. You don't have to answer all of them. You just choose one, and then you answer that in a 650-word essay. So the personal statement for the US is 650 words. You cannot go over 650 words. You cannot even go 651 words. You will not be able to submit your application even if you go 1 word over. So it has to be around 650 words or less. Typically, I advise students to be between 640 to 650 words. So the first prompt or the first essay question that you can choose is about a background, identity, interest, or talent that is so meaningful to you that your application would be complete without it. The second one is about an obstacle that you've encountered and how it affected you and what you learned from that experience. The third question is about a time when you questioned or challenged a belief or idea and what that experience was like. So this fourth question is relatively new. This was written and included in the Common App as a result of COVID. So during the pandemic, rather, they created this question. It has to deal with gratitude. So you're reflecting on something that someone has done for you, and how that made you happy and how that gratitude affected or motivated you. The fifth one is a very popular prompt or question that students choose. So this is discussing an accomplishment, an event, or a realization that sparked a period of personal growth and a new understanding of yourself or others. So I would say that out of all the students that I've worked with throughout the years, they either choose this specific question, so number 5, or number 1. So both of my students who got into Yale and UPenn, they chose number 1. So the one about background, identity, interest, or talent. I would say that the strongest personal statements for the US are ones that focus on a moment of personal growth and what you learned from that. Number 6 is to describe a topic, idea, or concept that you find engaging and explain why does it captivate you. And the 7th question that you can choose is to share an essay on any topic of your choice. Now, my colleagues and I, we never ever recommend students to choose the 7th one. This is because oftentimes my students are like, well, I can just choose an essay that I've already written for school and apply it to the 7th one. Please do not do that. You should choose, or you should write a completely new essay for your college applications. Don't choose an essay that you've written for school. Okay. So as you can see, none of these are academic related, really. So you're not going to be talking about what you want to study in college and why. So that's very different from the UK personal statement, which we'll talk about later on in this session. So for this personal statement for the US, again, I'm going to say the strongest personal statements for the US talk about a moment of personal growth and how that challenge or that setback or that obstacle really allowed you to grow and what you learned from that experience. Okay, so let's talk about what makes a good personal statement. Okay, so what makes a good personal statement? You're going to have a hook. So what is a hook? Can any of you explain what a hook is in the chat? So define what a hook means. Something to get the reader invested in the essay. Okay, exactly. So a hook is something to get the reader really drawn or hooked to your essay. And a hook makes the reader want to read more of your essay. So there needs to be a hook. And the way that I advise my students to do that is to engage the senses. So usually with the first paragraph, the student zooms into a specific moment, and then they describe that moment with really descriptive language. They engage the senses. And then what makes a compelling topic? So again, the best personal statements talk about a moment of personal growth. What makes you want to read another person's story? It needs to be engaging throughout. Okay, so what makes a bad topic? There's a couple of things that make a bad topic for the US personal statements. Academics. So for the UK, for UK personal statements, that would make a good topic. Like you're expected to talk about what you want to study. But for US personal statements, it's very, very different. And we're actually going to look at a sample personal statement from my student who got into University of Pennsylvania. But academics, I want to study engineering because you do not talk about that in the personal statement for the US. You save that for the supplemental essays. Negativity towards anyone. There's a student that my colleague worked with in the past who was talking bad about someone, and that's obviously not a good thing in your personal statement. So for the personal statement, you have to focus on yourself. It's a personal statement. The typical Dubai kid essays. So I come from a diverse place because, etc. So diversity obviously is very good. However, for personal statements, I noticed that a lot of students from Dubai and from the UAE in general want to talk about diversity. So it becomes overused. So it becomes an overused topic that a lot of Dubai kids talk about. The white savior complex. So I want to help people that are less fortunate than me. Like you could talk about volunteer work in your supplemental essays as well as in your personal statement as well. But we have to be careful with the language that you use. If you seem to, I guess, with the language that you use, you shouldn't seem too privileged compared to other groups of people. So you have to be careful if you want to talk about volunteer work. Solving a Rubik's Cube. So surprisingly, this is actually quite a popular topic that a lot of students talk about. So you should probably avoid that topic. And then themes of sadness and depression. Now, I know that a lot of students sometimes struggle with school and sometimes they struggle with their mental health. You should avoid talking about this, however, in your personal statement. The reason is that admissions officers, they want to admit students who are mentally ready and mentally capable to handle a rigorous school curriculum. So that's why you should avoid this specific topic. So as I mentioned, the Dubai Kid essay is a big no-no. If you want to talk about diversity, you can't, there's ways to talk about it, but in general, it's kind of a, I guess, an overused topic for Dubai students. And these are some examples of what students have written. Growing up in Dubai, I feel as though I have the whole world at my fingertips. I am exposed to various linguistic and cultural groups every day. Since the age of 4, I have never been in a classroom with less than 10 different nationalities. Beautifully written, but very overused for Dubai students. Another one, constant change has characterized my experience growing up in Dubai. People, fashion, and buildings are in constant motion. With over 200 nationalities in the UAE, Dubai cultivates a culture that values migration, social inclusion, and intercultural understanding. Thus, there's one aspect of Dubai that always remains: diversity. Again, this seems, I feel that the language used and the way that this is phrased is very well written. However, and the vocabulary used is also really good. However, it's a very overused topic. Okay. So let's talk about who's going to read your personal statement. The admissions committee is the main group of people. So this is the main group of people who will read your personal statement. And let me talk about this really quick. So the way that your applications are evaluated, it usually goes through 2 rounds. The first round is the regional committee. Let's say you're applying from Dubai. So the regional admissions officer is in charge of reading applications from the UAE, from Bahrain, from Qatar, and all the neighboring countries, like basically all the Gulf countries. If you're applying from India, the regional admissions officer will read all applications coming from India as well as nearby countries. And then after the regional evaluation, it goes to the admissions committee on the university campus. So it goes through 2 rounds. First, the regional round, and then the round that's based on campus. The Dean of Admissions sometimes reads applications, including essays. Students, so sometimes students will read your application essays. At my university, for example, Georgetown University, there was a committee of 2 to 3 students who sat in the admissions committee and read personal statements and evaluated them as well. So sometimes students, depending on the university, can have a say on whether you'll get in the university or not. Similarly, sometimes alumni will sit on the admissions committee. So now I'm going to share a personal statement written by my student who got into UPenn, specifically for finance. So she got into Wharton. Let me just find the essay. Here we go. So can you guys see my screen still?
Yeah, yes, it's visible.
Okay. So let me zoom in as well. As mentioned, she chose this prompt. It's the prompt about having a background, identity, interest, or talent that is so meaningful that they believe that your application would be incomplete without it. So please share your story. The piercing sound of glass and metal clinking together brings the indistinct chatter in the marriage hall to a halt. My uncle stands at the head of a long table and raises his glass to begin a toast to commemorate the most important day of an Indian man's life, his wedding. He speaks in Hindi and motions to my dad on the table, which is followed by an eruption of laughter. I sit there, managing to contort my lips in an awkward smile and muster up a fake chuckle to hide my feeling of isolation. I don't understand what he is saying. Although I am surrounded by people who seem to be my family, I feel so disconnected from them. My eyes dart around the room, desperate for a distraction. Suddenly, the phone rings, followed by Namaskar from my uncle. His beaming face is soon overcome with a flood of panic. Knowing my background in music, he looks at me with a slight glimmer in his eye, concerned, asks me in broken English, "My band canceled. Can you play for us?" So before I go on, as you can see for the first part of her essay, she zoomed into a specific moment. So here she's zooming into a wedding, and she's very detailed. She uses descriptive language. She's engaging the senses. Eruption of laughter, metal clinking, that engages the sense of hearing, for example. Okay, so going on. I grew up in a household where I often felt like I was in a tug of war between my parents' identities. Am I Chinese like my mom or Indian like my dad? So my student is half Chinese, half Indian. Am I loud or calm? From the most frivolous questions such as coffee or tea to bigger choices such as religion, I have always turned to my parents' decisions as multiple choice answers. And by picking one side, I felt like I was betraying the other. Despite this dilemma, throughout my childhood, I found myself retreating to my mother's side of the family. Over time, even my father has adopted more Chinese mannerisms. At the dinner table, he often eats dumplings with chopsticks rather than biryani with his hands. I felt ashamed to have abandoned half of my identity. Although I wanted to embrace my Indian side, that endeavor proved harder than it seemed. Throughout this rivalry between my parents' choices, the only moment of truce I had was in music. When my parents grew up, they loved music, especially piano. As a result, to connect with both of them, I decided at a young age to take on that instrument. Initially, attempting to connect with both my parents' characters served as the main motivation for this new hobby. However, I gradually started to develop an appreciation for the true power of the piano the piano reaps. When I perform, the piano transforms into a typewriter, each note signifying a different letter, a way for me to tell a story. In particular, when playing Chopin's Scherzo, a piece that features a chromatic, low register theme, I envision the separation I experience when surrounded by my Indian family and my longing to be one of them. This attachment between notes and memories somehow serves as a coping mechanism, a way to interact with my audience without words. Even though most of my dad's relatives don't speak English and I still have not mastered Hindi, I realize that I can still connect with my Indian culture and family members through music. Whenever I play either to my Indian aunt or my Chinese grandfather, they both understand what I try to express, be it happiness, sadness, or pain. I rest my hands on my lap after playing the ending of my favorite piece. Before being able to process the reaction from my family, I feel the warm embrace of my uncle, who I have never felt connected to. This act feels different, not like the usual ones done out of politeness, but a genuine symbol of gratitude. He understands my message through music. Only through this language am I able to effectively interact with my family and feel like I am finally a part of not only a celebration, but a culture with which I have longed to feel connected. So that was my student's personal statement. Just a minute. How do I share? Oops. What did you guys think? So in the chat, what did you guys think of her personal statement? So that's the personal statement of my student who got into UPenn. That's an Ivy League school. And it took her quite a while to write that. So we had around 14 drafts of her personal statement until it was finalized. Any thoughts on her personal statement? It was beautifully worded. Great. So let's talk about some of these questions. We're probably not going to cover all of these questions because I want to get to the UK personal statement as well. So what aspects of her personal statement did you like? What aspects did you guys like? Anything? It did get you hooked, very well worded. Ume, can you also share like maybe what aspects did you like? Umiman?
I think I like how you focus on the details. Like you
Yeah.
could very well imagine the entire family hall as well as the music in the background. So like, the senses were really involved.
Awesome. Yeah. So Bala Siva, she also said it was very well worded. I agree that her vocabulary that she used was well worded. What was good, I mean. You like how she focused on details. Yeah, so with the introduction and the conclusion, something that you might notice is that she she zoomed into a very specific moment. And that's what you should be doing in a personal statement. So usually the trick or the tip that I give to my students is that the conclusion should circle back to the introduction. So if you zoom into a specific moment for the intro, you should zoom into that specific moment again in the conclusion. Or if you use a specific word or phrase in the introduction, you should repeat that specific word or phrase in the conclusion as well. Dr. Tarun said she took her interest as a journey and kept the reader engaged. Exactly. I really love how everything flowed. The transitions were very smooth. Is there anything that you did not like? So is there anything that you would do differently in this essay? I do have one comment on this. So for me personally, I feel like the conclusion was too abrupt. So yeah, I feel like the transition to the conclusion was too abrupt, but then again, we tried really hard to find a smoother transition, but yeah, so we tried really hard to find a smoother transition into the conclusion, but because we only had 650 words, it was pretty tough. So Dr. Tarun, there was an emotional connection. So is it correct? Yes. So I'm not sure if I understand your question, but if I understand it correctly, there is supposed to be some sort of emotional connection that the students get from, or the reader gets from reading the personal statement. But in terms of the student herself, yes, at the end, she was able to connect her Chinese and Indian sides. What is the word count of the S? Oh, I mean, she talked about the separation in the last. Yeah, you're right. Ritika asked, what is the word count of the essay? So her essay was 650 words in total. Yeah, so 650 words is the maximum that you can write. Sandeep said she never boasted, and she said that she learned and mastered piano, but conveyed the fact that she is very good at it. It's a different way of saying that she knows other than studies. Yes, exactly. Okay. Great, and a fun fact about the student. So she's actually an internationally awarded pianist. So we highlighted that in her application. And another thing, so even if she applied for finance, what's nice about the US is that you can submit an optional arts portfolio. So she submitted a piano portfolio to supplement her application, even if she isn't a music student. So let's say you as an applicant, so you like painting or drawing or photography or dance or music, any musical instrument, you can submit an optional arts portfolio. The US really values well-rounded students, so you can absolutely submit an optional portfolio. And I can also help you with that. So let's talk about the personal statement structure a bit. Introduction, as you saw with her, she zoomed into a very specific moment. She zoomed into the wedding and she engaged the senses for that. The zoom out was providing context. So she mentioned that she was in a wedding. She also mentioned that she's half Indian, half Chinese. So continuing chronologically, so she mentioned that there's a struggle, like she mostly identifies with her Chinese side. So for instance, she mentioned that at the dinner table, her dad eats dumplings with chopsticks. So her dad has basically adapted to the Chinese side. And she mentioned in her personal statement that because she affiliates more with her Chinese side than her Indian side, she feels like she kind of betrayed her Indian side a bit. The climax or the lesson learned was that music is like her means to connect both cultures. So she's able to use the piano specifically to find a connection with her cultures. And then for the conclusion, again, she zoomed into that specific wedding experience. Brainstorming. So with a personal statement, one thing that makes, a personal statement interesting is obviously the topic. And because this topic is really the main meat of the personal statement, brainstorming for the topic really is important. So it's the very first step that we do in order to come up with the personal statement itself. So we have to brainstorm various different topics. And my tip, if you want to apply to the US, is to brainstorm 2 very different topics. So 2 topics, write 2 very different personal statements. And then from the 2, show it to an advisor or someone, or a parent or a sibling, and then choose which one is better. Whichever one you don't end up using, you can recycle for your supplemental university-specific essays. So there's the sample pie chart. I have a sample pie chart. So there's the pie chart exercise that I would advise students to do. And I will show you an example of this with my own pie chart. This is brainstorming, what makes up your identity and how would you define yourself? And there's also something called the 10 things exercise. So what are 10 things that you would want an admissions officer to know about you? What qualities do you want that admissions officer to know that you have? So for example, for kindness, if you're a kind person, why are you kind? Think of a specific moment or experience when you demonstrated kindness. The 10 things exercise is kind of quick to do. Actually, it's not. It's quick, but then thinking of specific moments kind of takes some reflection. So for example, 10 qualities that you can talk about are: you're curious, you're creative, you're ambitious, witty, spontaneous, thoughtful, adventurous, dynamic, forward-looking, and a go-getter. So here's an example, and this is from my own personal life. So I consider myself to be an ambitious person. Before my 23rd birthday, I made a detailed outline of goals that I have and specific resources to help me achieve these goals. One of the goals I had was to create a scholarship program. Exactly 1 month after my 23rd birthday, I collaborated with a school in Bangkok, Thailand, to create a series of scholarship opportunities for students learning English. So as you can see, I wrote ambitious, and then I wrote a very specific example of why I'm ambitious. And it should be one specific example. So here's a bad example: curious/creative. I love all forms of art. I'm trying to learn how to DJ, and also I'm teaching myself stop motion animation. So my question for you guys, why is this not a good example for the 10 things exercise? Why is this not a good example? This description. What's wrong with the description? Because it's all over the place and does not define any specific attribute of yours. Exactly. So that's correct, because it's very general. It's talking about, it's too bland. Yes. So Mridula is also correct. It's talking about two things as well. So it's talking about DJ and stop motion animation. You should only focus on one specific thing for the 10 things exercise. Like for the quality that you choose, you should only focus on one specific story or one specific example. And also, her description is too short. It's literally 2 sentences compared to this other one, very detailed example. Okay. So my pie chart exercise is quite personal, but I'm willing to be vulnerable for you guys today. So the pie chart exercise is highly, highly encouraged. If you want to find the perfect personal statement topic for the US, I highly encourage you to do this. For both my students who got into Yale and UPenn, they both did this pie chart exercise. Let me explain each to you. So colorism/racism is a big part of my life. Throughout high school, I experienced racism. I was one of 3 Asians at my entire high school. And because I was one of 3 Asians, a lot of people, I mean, they bullied me and they would say racist remarks to me. I was called chink at one point, which is a very bad racial slur. And one day when I was walking back to my locker after school, this boy in my class, he followed me to my locker and he threw a Chinese chicken salad right at my head, very hard. After that specific moment, I decided that I wanted to do something. I wanted to stand up for myself. So I told myself, you know what? Once I graduate from high school, once I go into college, I'm going to really be proactive in learning about different cultures and really exploring diversity and what that means, because I don't want to be ignorant and I don't want to, you know, bully other people. Like, I don't want to be like my bullies. So I want to really learn about other cultures, other backgrounds, other religions, etc. So what I did in college, I had this really strong commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. I was a part of many different student clubs and organizations. I was part of the Asian student organization. I was also part of the Black student organization. I was part of the Jewish student organization. I was also part of the Chinese Student Association, Hawaiian Student Association, etc. I also got elected for a part in the student government, and I created this diversity dinner and dialogue series. And we would talk about different topics about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and invite guest speakers as well. So I think through this, I really formed this from being bullied in high school, I wanted to transform that negative into a positive experience. I wanted to transform an obstacle and into an opportunity for growth and for learning. So I created this commitment within myself to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion. Because of that, I'm highly interested in international travel. So right after I graduated from college, I moved to Thailand, and I worked for the Ministry of Education for 1 year. As mentioned in my introduction earlier, I also moved to the Philippines, and I worked for the U.S. Embassy in Manila. I also have lived in Dubai in the past, and I'm also going to be moving back to Dubai, and I worked for an education firm in Dubai. I've also lived and worked and studied in different parts of the United States as well, in California, in Boston, in Ohio, in Washington, D.C., which is highly international. So I really love traveling. Pizza. So I'm known as the pizza girl to my friends. Pizza is my favorite food. Wherever I go travel, I always make it a point to find like a pizza place, like a pizza restaurant, and try different types of pizza. I would say that it's like my branding. So even my favorite emoji is the pizza emoji when I type to my friends. The arts. So I'm very, very interested in the arts. I love all forms of art. So I dance ballet. I also dance hip hop recently. I have taught myself stop motion animation. I am trying to teach myself how to like produce music. Let's see, I love photography. I love poetry. So actually I'm a published poet, and some of my poetry was featured at the Harvard University Asia Center as part of an exhibit. And I also do some art. So I draw and I sketch, and I also had a mixed media collage that was featured at Harvard. So I love different forms of art. Lastly, relationship with my dad. So because of bullying, I kind of blamed, unfortunately, I did blame my parent for it, because we had moved to a different, so I shifted to a different school. So originally I was attending my first year, my grade 9 in Ohio, in a school in Ohio. And then we moved to California, and I transferred schools. And when I transferred, that's when I started experiencing the bullying. So I got mad at my dad. I was like, why did we have to move? Like, I'm at the school, I'm very unhappy. And I kind of blamed it on him because of the move, because of his career. So we kind of had a rough, I guess, relationship at first, but through the years, our relationship evolved. We became stronger, and unfortunately, he did pass away just a few months ago. But I am happy to say that we fully resolved our relationship. We grew incredibly strong together. And yeah, I would say that these are very important aspects of my life. So this is an example of a pie chart exercise. Again, if you are planning on applying to the US, I highly encourage you to do this exercise in order to choose which topic you like. Before I go on to talking about the UK, I'm going to talk about our undergraduate counseling services. So I offer undergraduate counseling through LEAP. So we focus on profile building. So what I do is I help students develop their extracurricular profile. I help students identify internships. So a lot of students that I've met with, they have not pursued any internships yet. They're not required for US or UK or Canada. However, I highly encourage you to do an internship because it'll look really good on your applications. And I actually have a bunch of internships lined up. So whether you want to do business or law or computer science or engineering, I have internships ready for you guys to do. So please contact me, and I'm going to give my email address after or during the session. I also identify colleges that are best suited for you. So whether you want to apply to the US, Canada, UK, sorry, there's a question. I'm going to answer the question in a bit, Ritika. So I will recommend colleges to you based off of your academic and extracurricular interests. Personal statement, letters of recommendation, supplemental essays. So I help with all of these. I help brainstorm the essay topic. So with these like pie chart exercise and the 10 things exercise, I will help you do these if you would like. I help outline the essays thoroughly and in detail. And I will also help you draft the essays and finalize the essays as well, so that they're in top shape for the Ivy League schools or for any schools that you want to apply to. Advice on scholarships. So I myself went through this process, and I have gotten scholarships from a number of universities, including 3 Ivy League schools, Columbia, UPenn, and Harvard. So with scholarships, I can identify which schools give the best scholarships, and some schools require scholarship essays. I can help you with those essays as well. Financial guidance. If you're an international student, your parents will have to fill out a form called the Certification of Finances. I will help you and your parents. I will guide you guys in filling out this form. And lastly, because I used to work at the U.S. Embassy, I'm very familiar with the visa process. So I know what types of questions they will ask you in the visa interview. So I will help you with the documents. For the US, you'll have to fill out the DS-160 in order to obtain the F1 student visa. So I will help you with that process, and I will help you prepare for your visa interview. So those are some of the services that we offer. And again, these are some schools that my students have been admitted to. This is my profile. And okay, so these are the packages. The Ivy Advising Program is our most comprehensive package. That's 50,000 dirhams. So for Ivy Advising, you would work specifically with me and with me only. And for Ivy Advising, we help you with 20 university applications. Global advising is essentially the same as Ivy. However, you wouldn't work with just me. You would also work with another counselor. And for global, we only help with 7 universities. That's at 30,000 dirhams. Elite advising, you likely will not be working with me. I would pop in for a few sessions. That would be 10,000 dirhams for 7 university applications. And lastly, there's the profile building program. So for profile building, we do not help with any applications for college. We just help you develop your extracurricular profile. That's at 5,000 dirhams. Okay, so before we talk about the UK essays, do any of you guys have questions about the US personal statement? Ritika asked a question. One of my friends had.
Arienne, I'm so sorry to interrupt. I just want to say, guys, I've launched a poll and hopefully it's visible to all of you. So it would be like great if you all could just click whichever answer suits you best and give us the poll. Thank you so much. You may continue, Arienne.
Sure. So Ritika had asked, one of my friends had told me that having MUN, Model United Nations experiences, help in getting into colleges. Could you please elaborate? Absolutely. So for both the US and the UK, extracurricular activities, and for the UK, they call it supercurricular activities. And I'm going to talk about that in a few slides from now. Activities in general matter for your applications. For Canada, not so much, but for the US and UK, they do matter. So they look at these non-academic factors such as clubs and organizations you've been involved in, leadership roles that you've held. So if you've been in like, I don't know, student council or student government, that will look really positive in your applications. If you've done any work experience like internships, if you've done any volunteer work, community service, online courses, those will look really good in your applications. How much importance will be given to a student who has done her graduation in singing as well as dancing? Is this for Trinity College London? So if you've done singing and dancing, that will also look good in your applications. And I would highly advise you to submit an arts portfolio, and I could help you with that process as well. In terms of how much importance that these activities have, there's no percentage really, but I would say that if I were to put a percentage, activities are usually weigh around 30 to 40% of your application. The rest would be academics as well as letters of recommendation. UK personal statement requirements. So the UK personal statement, it's not 650 words, it's 4,000 characters. So that's roughly 500 words or 1 page. 4,000 characters. Let me note that characters includes letters, spaces, and punctuation marks. So each single digit, each single thing matters for characters. The UCAS website states that a personal statement supports your application to study at a university or college. It's a chance for you to articulate why you would like to study at a particular course, Study a particular course or subject and what skills and experience you possess that show your passion for your chosen field. So as I mentioned, for the US, you do not talk about academics. For the UK, it's the total opposite. You do talk about your academics. You talk about what you want to study in the UK and why. And you present examples of things that you've done in your past that relate to your chosen career or chosen field of study. You should avoid presenting a list of things that you've done. So even though you should talk about activities that you've done, you shouldn't present it in list form. Admissions teams do not care about how many charity projects you've been involved with, unless you tell them what you have gained from each one. So you have to be able to elaborate on your experiences. What did you learn from doing a particular work experience or a particular internship? What did you learn from doing a particular volunteer project? You really need to elaborate on your experiences. So here are some topics or some points that you need to consider when you outline and when you think about your UK personal statement. Narrow down your academic focus. Do you want to study business? If you want to study business, are you into marketing, finance, accounting, entrepreneurship? The more specific you are, the better. Computer science. If you're into computer science, what do you like about computer science? Are you into artificial intelligence or computer graphics? What exactly about computer science fascinates you? What programming languages do you know? Okay. If you're into economics, for example, are you into macroeconomics or microeconomics? So again, the more narrow you are, the more specific you are, the better. What activities have you pursued related to your academic focus? So for example, for computer science, have you participated in any hackathons? For economics, are you part of like the economic society at your school? Or have you taken any online courses on economics? Have you received any awards related to your academic focus? So have you received any awards at school, for instance? Why the UK? So why do you want to study in the United Kingdom? What are your goals? How will your desired field of study help you accomplish these goals that you have in mind? And what are your values? How will these qualities help you succeed in your academic and professional goals? Supercurricular activities. So as mentioned, supercurricular activities are very important for the UK. In the US, they call them extracurricular activities. So extracurricular activities are activities in general that are not necessarily academic. In contrast, supercurricular activities are career-centered activities that pertain to your major or to your course. So UK admissions officers look for evidence of your participation in supercurricular activities that support the academic strengths that you showcase. And I'm going to provide a few specific examples for you in the next few slides. But some general examples: attending degree-related guest lectures, work experience like an internship. So let's say you want to be a doctor. If you've shadowed a doctor, so one of my students shadowed an ophthalmologist, that counts as work experience. Listening to podcasts, competitions related to your desired field of study. So these are supercurricular activities for computer science applicants. And I got this, by the way, from the Oxford website. So I would highly encourage you to maybe consider these. So you should read books. So reading a book, by the way, counts as a supercurricular activity for the UK. For the US, reading a book is, I guess, too simple to count as an extracurricular activity. But for the UK, this would count. So Oxford actually recommended this specific book for computer science applicants. AI, Its Nature and Future by Margaret A. Bowden. So this talks about the technological challenges raised by AI. The UKMT. So how many of you have heard of the United Kingdom Mathematics Trust, UKMT? Okay, so no one has heard about the UKMT. So the UKMT is actually, I understand if many of you have not heard of the UKMT, especially if you don't go to a British curriculum school. So the UKMT is a mathematics competition, and it's basically like an Olympiad. So are any of you involved at Olympiads in your school? Yes, no? Yes? Okay, nice. So Chirag, what subjects are you responsible for in your Olympiad? Okay. So aside from Olympiads, you could also do hackathons. I wrote 5 subjects so far. Perfect. That will look really good on your applications. 5 subjects. Great. So Coursera, how many of you have heard of Coursera or edX before? Or Udemy? Yes, no? Doing a stock creating course on Udemy. Okay, good. That's great to hear. Yes. So Coursera and edX courses are very good to consider. Like if you want to, I guess, broaden your extracurricular activities or supercurricular activities, I highly encourage you to do online courses. Also work experiences. So thefarage.com, I put it in the chat. This offers free virtual online self-paced course internships, work experiences for students. Now, I will admit that the internships on this website are more advanced. So they're, I would say, actually they're geared towards college level students. So you might find them a bit difficult, but I would still highly encourage you to do these. Okay, so for business and economic applicants, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. This focuses on soft skills. This would be a good supercurricular activity, a good book to read. Economic Society. So sometimes schools have something called the Keen Society. That would be a good, I guess, club to join at your school if you have that. Abu Dhabi University has the Young Entrepreneur Competition. There's also Coursera online course on financial markets offered by Yale. And there's also, so on that same website, thefarage.com, they have a work experience on banking offered by JP Morgan. And JP Morgan is internationally known. Okay, so I have a sample UK personal statement. Let me try and look for that. Okay, this is quite long, so I won't read all of it, but I'm gonna highlight some things that the student did. So he was very clear from the start what he wants to study. He mentioned a study of economics and history. So he actually applied to a number of schools in the UK and got into many of them. Let's see, Oxford University. So he got into Oxford. He got into University of Nottingham. He got into University of York. And he also got into University of Durham. So that's a lot of schools. He obviously went to Oxford. United in the Drive, okay. So he mentioned right away why economics appeals to him. He attended a debate chambers economics summer school. So right off the bat, you see that he's very engaged in the topic of economics, and he provides a specific example of what he learned. He learned about Marx's labor theory, a value to China's currency manipulation. He also read this book by Robert Heilbroner, The Worldly Philosophers. So again, reading books related to your field of study count as supercurricular activities. He also did a project that focuses, so an extended project for his school that focuses on fostering economic development in East Asia. He read this book that's related to economics. He wrote a competition essay, so he participated in an economics competition, and this was his topic. So as you could see in this essay, he talks a lot about his experiences that are related to economics and history as well. So someone in the chat had asked about supercurriculars for fashion design. So for fashion design, I would highly encourage you to look at Coursera and edX. I've actually seen some courses on fashion design, specifically, I believe, from NYU and Parsons. There's also something else. So I'm going to put the name in the chat. Let me just find it. So I have had a fashion design student. If you're interested in streetwear, there's something that's offered by a program that's offered by Parsons School of New York, as well as by Complex. So that's a company. It's called Streetwear Essentials, and that's by Parsons School of Design and Complex. So I would look that up if you're into fashion design. Okay. So for the UK personal statement, I'll just tell you a little bit about it. So, well, first of all, my question for you guys, how is this different from the US personal statement? Your thoughts? Anyone? By the way, we're almost done with the session. I know that this is quite long. So they did talk about academics. You're completely right. So the US personal statements are sentimental, whereas UK statements are practical and academically centered. That's correct. UK is more academic oriented, whereas USA involves more personal attachment. That is absolutely correct. All of what you said is absolutely correct. And actually, fun fact, the way that the personal statement is, I guess, approached for US and UK is very reflective of their college, I guess, experience or college, college experience or college culture. So in the US, it's, they have a balance of academics and extracurricular activities. Whereas the UK, I would say, is way more strict, rigid, and academically focused. So the UK, you can't, so in the UK, you would need to know your major or your course or field of study pretty much when you apply. For the US, they're a lot more flexible than the UK. So for the US, you don't have to declare your major or course of study until the end of your second year of college. You have a lot of flexibility. Okay. So that's all, guys. The rest of this session is reserved for your questions. If you want to, by the way, I want to say that if you want a free demo session with me, I offer one free one-on-one counseling demo session. So during that demo session, what I do is I evaluate your profile. I would get from you, I would ask you for your academic and your extracurricular profile. So what are your grades like? If you've taken the SAT, what was your score like? If you do extracurricular activities, what activities do you do outside of the classroom? I'll evaluate your profile. I'll identify gaps or weaknesses. So maybe like what online courses should you do? And I'll identify specific ones for you to do. What internships should you do? Usually students really value that. So I'll give you a list of internships to do that you can choose from. And then lastly, I also tell you like what kinds of schools that you should apply to. So yeah, that would be covered in one full hour. I have a lot of slots available this week if you want to have that one-on-one demo session with me. So this is my email address. I'm also going to share it in the chat for you guys. Give me a minute. In the meantime, yeah,
I
go.
would like to chime
ahead.
in. So guys, if you are interested in registering a free demo session with Arienne, you can type in your names in the chat box as well. And our team will be able to take it up as soon as possible. And so you can book your session as quickly as possible with her. And hope you all, had an amazing session. Let us know. Okay, I think Meher is already interested. Meher, I've noted down your name and our team will contact you. Okay, cool. Ritika is also there. Shirag is also there. All right, guys. So I will note down your names and my team will contact you by tonight evening or by tomorrow at the latest. And so you can register yourselves and book a session with Arienne. So Arienne, was there something that you were going to say?
Yeah, if you guys have any questions, let me know, but I've put my email in the chat as well. Ume, do you mind noting down the name?
Yes, I've done that.
Okay.
I am doing
okay,
that. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, perfect. Yeah. And then we will get back to you to schedule sessions with you. So I'll schedule sessions with you this week. Can you please talk about scholarships, opportunities, and financial aid? Absolutely. So scholarships, most international students want merit-based scholarships. There's two types of scholarships for the US. There's merit-based and there's need-based financial aid. Merit-based, they don't look at your family's financial situation at all. For merit-based scholarships, you're evaluated on your academic merits, so your academic activities, your academic performance, as well as your extracurricular activities. So usually for merit-based scholarships, there's no separate application process. You just submit your application, and when the admissions officers read your application, they will determine whether you're qualified to receive any specific scholarships. For need-based scholarships, so need-based financial aid rather, they do evaluate your financial situation. And oftentimes for international students, that could actually hurt your chance of admission if you request that you need money or you need financial assistance, unless it's a need blind school. So there's only 6 need blind schools for international students. Stanford University is one of them, Amherst College, Dartmouth College, I believe Harvard University. So usually the top schools are need blind. If a school is need blind, that means that if you need financial assistance, that's not going to hurt your application chances. For merit-based financial assistance, so for merit-based scholarships, again, that will not hurt your application chances. They'll just evaluate your application and tell you whether you're going to get scholarships or not. Some universities require an extra essay. For Boston University, for example, you'll have to submit an essay as to why you believe that you're qualified for a scholarship. That's for the trustee scholarship at Boston University. For U.S.C, that's the University of Southern California, there's no extra essay. However, you have to submit your applications by December 1st, I think, either December 1st or December 15th. So usually if you want to have an essay, want to get a scholarship, you have to submit your applications early. The earlier you submit, it's usually better for scholarship consideration. Any other questions?
Okay, guys, you all can go ahead and post your questions in the chat box. Meanwhile, there's also one last piece of information I'd like to give you all. So I am typing down the link for our Discord community. So now you can catch us and as well as Arienne on our Discord community, where we'll be able to answer all of your questions regarding your college applications, as well as post additional information. And on our Discord community, we also post the links of our webinar like this one today, so that you all get the most benefit out of us. And we are here to help you throughout all of your procedures. So please join our Discord as soon as possible. You can just click on the link and it will register you. On our Discord community, we keep posting every single day additional information about college procedures, as well as you can ask any further doubts you have on our Discord as well. And we'll be able to help you. Meanwhile, any further questions, you can type it in the chat box right now. either write down the questions, and if not any, we can conclude the session. But before that, there's just one small request. Can you all elaborate on whether you all found this webinar helpful, whether it wasn't helpful, or just describe it in one adjective whether you liked the webinar or not? Anything you would like to give us, like a feedback, or how was the webinar for you all? Let us know in the chat box whether it was helpful or not, or whether you liked it or not.
Very informative. Thank you. Oh, by the way, so my next webinar topic is going to be on scholarships and financial aid. So that's going to be a hot topic. Last time, I think we had 50 students join the webinar and parents as well. Okay. So we have a question from Jeswin. When does the admission process start, or when should we apply to these colleges? Very good question. So your applications for the US, they open on August 1st. So the Common App, you can already create your account. However, they will refresh everything on August 1st. So the applications, like the college specific questions, will not get released until the first week of August, typically August 1. That's for the US. For Canada, usually applications open in September or October. It's a little bit later. And for the UK, for the UCAS, the UCAS is the portal or the website that's similar. It's the UK equivalent to the Common App. For the UCAS, for the UK, applications don't open until September 1st. So the earliest one would be the US. In terms of deadlines, for early action, so if you want to apply early action or early decision in the US, the deadline is typically November 1, and then you would find out whether you're accepted or rejected or deferred by December 15th, or by the week of December 15th. For regular decision, the deadlines vary depending on the university, but typically it's January 1st, January 5th, January 15th. The latest that I've seen was February 2nd, but it really depends on the university. Typically for regular decision, it's within January. So do the application fees differ from early application and regular? No, they do not. I also want to clarify the difference between early action and early decision. So early decision is binding, early action is non-binding. If you apply early decision anywhere, what I mean by binding is that you can only apply to one university with the early decision option. Typically, students apply to their first choice school, the dream school. And then if you get into that university, you have to commit to that university and you have to withdraw your applications to all other universities. For early action, it's non-binding. So you don't have to commit right away. You can wait till you receive the other, I guess, decisions, and then you can commit later by May 1st. So essentially, early action is very similar to regular decision. The only difference between early action and regular decision is that you would hear back earlier for early action. So again, for early decision and early action, you hear back by around December 15th. What academic marks should we give them during the admission process? You need to give them your grades from grades 9, 10, and 11. Also for grade 12, obviously you're not going to have your marks yet, but the school will provide your predicted grades. So teachers typically give a predicted grade of what you'll receive. And then after you submit your applications, the universities ask for something called the mid-year report. So the mid-year report is like a progress report. It's an update of your grades. So after you apply, your high school will provide universities with a progress report of what your updated grades are. What is the ideal time to get started on the registration process for 2023 for U.S.A? Now is the right time. So actually, I am already starting the essay process with my students. The reason why I say now is the right time is because applications open in August, on August 1. And if you start in August, you're going to be very overwhelmed, I promise you. So that's why I say, I heavily advise students to start earlier than August. Usually I advise students to finish their personal statement for the US by the end of July. So before August, they should already have their personal statement ready and finalized. So for instance, with the students that I'm working with now, we're already starting with the personal statement so that it's finished by the end of next month. We're also already starting the supplemental essays. So the supplemental essays are university-specific questions. Any other questions? UK admission dates. I shared this in our last session. Let me just confirm. Okay, I memorized it. October. So typically for October, that would be for the most popular, most competitive majors. So that would be for dentistry, medical, and veterinary applications are due in October. Typically October 25th, I believe. And if you submit it later than October 25th for those fields, they will not even evaluate your application. And then for the UK, for all other subjects, usually the deadline would be January, I think January 15th, around that time. And again, you cannot submit late applications. This is for the UK. Yeah. Any other questions?
What the questions you all have? So just a reminder, you all can join our Discord right away. So you all have updated information with you. And on our Discord, we also keep updating the dates and information about the dates and when you can apply and register for your specific universities. Here's the posted link. Any further doubts?
So let me just address, Ashok still on the call? Yes. So just to clarify, I pulled up the specific dates. For medicine, veterinary science, and dentistry, the application deadline is October 15. This is for the UK. For most other subjects, the deadline is January 15th. If you apply late, your application will not be considered. This is both for the US and the UK. They're really strict with their application deadlines. Even if you're a minute late or like 1 second late, they count the seconds, by the way, your application will not be evaluated.
Okay, I don't think there are any further doubts. I think we can end the session here.
Okay.
Thank you so much for joining in, guys, and keep taking care of yourselves. Our next session is on Wednesday. If you would like to join our session for SATs, same timing. And Arienne will be back with her webinar on, I think, financial aid and scholarships next week, Saturday, same timing. So see you.
Sorry. So it's Friday. So starting next week, it's going to be Friday. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Friday,
see you on Friday. Mm-hmm.